The lockdown files have been released. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, all the texts between all the ministers have been leaked. So we can literally see what they were talking about at the time.
It's not looking good.
No, it's pretty nice, actually. This is
Well,
beautiful.
it's nice to be vindicated.
Yeah,
But
well,
it's not good for what it says about the British establishment, other than everything that we knew it was for the past 3 years.
well, that's the nice thing about all this. We'll go through it, but everything you thought about these people is actually reality. That's all that's come out from this. At least what's been publicly released from the newspaper that's got
I
all
hate
the
being
documents.
vindicated every single time. Why do I have to be right so much?
We'll start off just by plugging something on lotus.com, being Robert Conquest Reflections on a Ravaged Century, in which we and Carl went through the years of the 20th century and the hell
Not
that
a
was
good one.
endured. Yeah, but the funny thing is you go into the leaders individually of each of the socialist countries, and they're as retarded as you think they are. And then we go back to our so-called capitalist countries in today, and yeah, they're as retarded as you think they are. They're exactly the goddamn same. So we'll start off with the news, which is that Talk TV had the rightist journo on, Isabel over here, who was the one who got all the messages and leaked them. Do you want to know how she got hold of those 100,000 WhatsApp messages?
Some kind of subterfuge, Russian intelligence. I bet it was Russian spy network hacking.
No, the former health minister who was in charge just gave it to her.
Matt Hancock. you
Yeah.
mean? So is he is he working for the Russians? The Russians have got to be involved somehow, Callum. Just make it make sense. The Russians have to be involved somewhere.
She was Russian to print the news. But yeah, no, I don't understand the reasoning. Apparently it was something to do with like writing a book or something, but either way, the health minister, who everyone thinks is a bastard, who was cheating on his wife while telling us that we all had to be locked in our homes, gave all the text messages to this woman, and she just published them, and then he's mad that she's published them.
Big brain.
I don't know what he was
brain.
expecting. Quote, he said there was absolutely no public interest case for such a huge breach, because all the material used in the Pandemic Diaries book was given over to the COVID-19 public inquiry.
Now, do you remember what Dominic Cummings said about Liz Truss? That she used to be like a cabinet hand grenade. They would talk about all this stuff that they're supposed to be kept under wraps, and she'd immediately just go and talk to the press about it.
Yeah.
This is like that, so much worse.
But I know Matt Hancock got disgraced and has been about, I don't know, what was it? He was in the jungle for a bit. And I forget that happened. It's so stupid.
Oh, we live in clown world.
I'm a celebrity, are you? Like, you're a celebrity adulterer, but that's about it.
Well, I mean, for the caliber of celebrity that shows up on I'm a Celebrity, then kind of yes.
So he handed over these texts, and she went, thanks for that, I'm a journalist, I'm going to publish those. Good work. Good work, Isabel.
I mean, thank you. Thank you for doing so.
Yeah, the defense being, well, don't you know there's a state-mandated inquiry that's going to manage this? You don't have to tell the public what really happened.
Oh, when the state's going to investigate itself and find
Yes.
itself completely innocent.
No, it'll find the... Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we'll go to the messages, because it's exactly what you'd expect. Julie Hartley-Brewer tweeting one of them here, in which you have Matt Hancock, the health secretary at the time, the one who did this to us. He starts talking about how there's a new tool that Jenny Harris has been developing to define your risk should you be exposed to COVID. Age is the biggest determinant, then sex, followed by other conditions of obesity, blah, blah, blah.
Matt Hancock, conspiracy theorist, confirmed.
What really matters is that some risks in groups are incredibly high, where in low-risk groups, the risk is incredibly low. Then Boris responds, Matt, as I read your chart, an 80-year-old with COVID has a 6% chance of dying, and if you're under 35, your chances are negligible.
Even Boris understands.
Yeah, Boris continues, if I were an 80-year-old woman and I was told that the choice was between destroying the economy and risking my exposure to a disease that has a 94% chance of surviving, I'd know which one I prefer. Yeah, funny this. It turns out that Boris Johnson did actually have common sense behind closed doors. In the public eye, he had to carry on with this.
Old Mophead was just playing stupid.
It's really weird, because like you can see these people when they're out campaigning being themselves, in the sense of, like, I know myself is popular here in, like, Boris Johnson land. Like, for all of his faults, great campaigner. And, well, you could see on the inside, as soon as he became on the throne, publicly he became this wet, who was constantly like, we must shut down the whole country. But internally, we can now see, no, he was like, why are you all retarded?
Well, I mean, he still did shut down the whole country, so he's
yeah, he
kind of
deserves. He deserves the scorn for what he did, don't get me wrong. But it's funny to see the inside conversation where he's just like, this is really dumb. But then why did you do it? Like, you're the Prime Minister. Who's Matt Hancock? Nobody knows.
I was bored.
Yeah, whatever. So we'll go to the next one, because Nick posted some more as well, where he was talking about the fact that it's exactly what you'd expect. I love how he sums it up here, which is Boris not really getting it and cracking jokes, Cummings being a supercomputer, and Hancock's delusional opportunist prioritizing goals. And the media is totally complicit as well. Because it goes on here, you have Dominic Cummings, who's just explaining percentages, because everyone I don't know, doesn't understand how mathematics works in government, apparently. And then the next one is Matt Hancock writing to George Osborne, if you go back to the picture, where, if you don't know, George Osborne used to be in charge of the economy. Fantastic guy, great policies, such as the pasty tax, which is why in England, if you go and buy a pasty, it's always cold now.
Is that why?
Yeah, literally. If a pasty is hot, there's a higher rate of tax, whereas if it's cold, there's a lower rate of tax, as in 0.
So you're telling me, I didn't even realise this, George Osborne ruined Greggs?
Yes. And the Cornish
As a
Steakhouse.
northerner, I cannot abide by this.
Yeah, actual awful individual. The worst policies in the world. It's like, I haven't even thought through anything. And he's now in charge of the media and the Evening Standard over there. So when the media tells you everything is fine, this moron is the guy telling you it. So we have Matt Hancock writing to him directly, being like, I want to reach my goal. How can we make this happen? Please run pieces supporting the government and telling everyone to get tested. And he's like, yeah, of course, I'll do it.
I love the phrasing as well. 22,000 spare slots tomorrow in my drive-thrus. Demand isn't there. This is obviously good news about the spread of the virus, but hard for my target. And if there's one thing that we know governance about, it's not about good governance, it's about hitting targets.
Yes, it is about, can I get more media headlines, please? Then you write to your friends in the media who work for you, who do it. You know how everyone was concerned that the media seemed to be in lockstep with the government on day one, and then for the rest of the thing, and wasn't actually holding the government to account at any point, because they don't, the olden days in which
They're the same people. The government...
the same goddamn group of people.
Former government ministers go into the editor positions of the magazines and the news media corporations and then say the government's doing a great job, guys, don't panic.
We don't live...
Or the government's doing a great job, guys, please panic.
Like, we don't live in the 70s or 80s where there might have been some opposition media in the mainstream. No, all of them. All of the legacy ones, they're literally controlled by the state. George Osborne was a state minister in the same party that's currently ruling at the time and writes state propaganda for the state. Yeah, there is no real difference in that, in my opinion, and what people complain about in Russia, rightfully. But it's just, okay, that's how we live. But we'll move on, because apparently the rest of the leaks were pretty much the same. The Telegraph started doing all their... stuff in different articles, like drip feeding it to keep the story going for ages, which is a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Good job. So we'll go through the headlines, because that's really all these articles are. They're just headlines. No good reason to impose rule of 6 on children, but ministers did it anyway. There we are. That's now in there. They literally were like, well, there's no evidence, but let's just do it.
Rule of 6 is that 6 feet?
No, the fact that you had, I think it was 6 people.
Yeah, there was the 6 people to a household or something. If you didn't already live with all of these people, you could only ever have 6 people in a household at the same time.
And it made no sense for kids, because, of course, kids weren't going to die. So,
and they were never going to die, and Boris Johnson and everybody else knew it.
Yeah, they had the data. It wasn't. We weren't shouting at the data at them like it was something new to them. It was not new. We'll give some consequences of that, just because they're there. I mean, there's this other headline where they're talking about the fact that Hancock rearguard action shut down the schools. Apparently, the education minister was like, "What? You want to shut down the schools? Why? Well, COVID." I mean, the education minister was like, "But they won't die of COVID." And the health minister went, "I don't care."
I wish there was... Can there be some kind of court-martialing for Hancock? Somehow I don't think that being forced to eat camel testicles in the jungle was
enough.
It was nowhere near a punishment for him. I mean, he already gobbles testicles on the weekends, I imagine, so it was probably just a little trip.
Oh, if he's cheating on his mistress with testicles, then that's...
Probably. And he's a government minister.
Yeah, we'll get to the next one, because there's more headlines, of course. The next one being Boris Johnson proposed giving over 65s choice on COVID sheltering. So you decide to go to your family instead of being stuck in a care home where you're going to die. So, okay. That seems like good news for Boris behind the scenes, but they didn't do it in the end. Very sad. If we go to the next article, then we can see that Britain's second lockdown was based on very wrong COVID data. Boris Johnson feared, being the headline on that one. If we can learn the next article, please. Because this is a pattern I find throughout the leaks. This makes me a little bit sus, so we'll be honest. Because 100,000 WhatsApp messages, and every single one of them seems to prove or show that Matt Hancock was a bastard who destroyed the country, and Boris Johnson didn't do nothing. He was trying to argue.
He was an innocent little boy.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, and the evidence is there in the previous example we gave, for example, in which Boris is like, this is mad. But at the same time, I'm not entirely trusting of the the Telegraph here.
Once again, he did still shut down the country. Yeah,
but also, again, legacy media outlet, the Telegraph, is telling me the facts. They're the ones with the messages. They haven't publicly released them. And the fact
by the lockdown files team, I wonder, do you remember how at the beginning of the Twitter files there was a literal FBI agent filtering the information that was given to the journalists looking through it?
Yeah, so I do retain skepticism on the basis of legacy media not releasing the full data. So
Sorry, just to
Well, we have
correct
to go
before
on with
somebody does, not FBI agent, he was a lawyer who was kept on retainer for the FBI.
we'll go to the next one here because we can see more about that, which is that Boris also said the numbers were completely exaggerated in internal messages. We can see one here, which is just like the great Steve Baker. He's a king. Believes that the numbers of deaths have been exaggerated. It might be worth seeing when Hennigan is saying to the Telegraph, referencing here, again, your modelings just seem to be completely wrong. Why am I trusting anything you people say? But then again, then why didn't you just tell them to get stuffed if you didn't trust them? Weird behaviour.
Why didn't you just fire all of them?
Yeah. The next one is also revealing the face mask thing for kids. Because remember, kids basically couldn't die of it, so there's a very, very low chance. So why did you face mask the kids? Well, it turns out the reason we face mask kids was to avoid an argument with Nicola Sturgeon, because she'd insisted that all kids be face masked in Scotland, with no evidence, no reasoning, but just my feels. And the government in England went, alright, let's not bother having an argument about evidence. Let's just do what mad woman in Scotland has said. Literally no evidence-based policy. It is just go for it. Because my politics.
Because why not?
So the thing everyone was telling you in the opposition, that yeah, this is nuts. I'm not talking about the opposition party, because there wasn't one in Parliament. But the opposition on the outside of government, us and many other people out there who were going on those, I think it was those conspiratorial marches, that maybe these people weren't following the science. It turns out they weren't, but they knew it, and was messaging each other about how this doesn't make any sense. Strange. We'll go to a girl here who was suspended 11 times from school for not wearing a mask. And we now know the government ministers in charge were saying that didn't make any sense. So this little girl had more sense than them, and more balls.
So they owe her reparations.
I mean, yes.
Yeah.
I'd agree with
I'm not entirely joking there. I think she should be given, or her family should be given some compensation for the stress that they underwent.
I agree. I got nothing against that. We'll get to the next one as well. Mass COVID testing was useless and harmed children, said a Birmingham professor with 25 years of testing expertise to the government, and the government called him a tosser and a total idiot in the leaked messages. So the actual scientist in the room is like, hey, I'm the one with the expertise, this is a waste of time. And they're like, yeah, whatever, idiot. Don't you know I got elected? You didn't. You became an MP, and then got picked to be a minister. You didn't get elected to a minister position.
Do you know this? I almost wish all of this hadn't come out. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it confirms that we were all right this entire time, which makes it feel even more like a kick in the teeth that none of these people are going to face any consequences for it.
Yeah.
Whatever consequences come, like Matt Hancock going and being a national television star, getting to go to the jungle with a bunch of celebrities for a few weeks, will be purely ceremonial, purely based on image. Nothing substantial will happen to any of these people. They will just get shuffled through, probably end up in an editorial position of another national newspaper, and everything will be hunky-dory for them. They'll still be able to live in their big fancy homes in Westminster.
Yeah,
Fantastic.
I don't think any of these people's cars or homes are going to be taken from them.
Nope.
Which,
well, nobody's going to lose their jobs or their families or
M&S food every day.
M&S, yeah. Nobody's going to be convinced. Nobody's family members who are related to these people are going to be convinced that they're evil because they say, "Hey, none of this makes any sense," and they go, "Well, the Evening Standard told me that you're an evil conspiracy theorist. I'm going to cut all contact with you."
Being part of the British elite is a very cushy existence. We'll get to the next one here because they all knew it was pointless as well. I mean, just the video evidence. Because remember when everyone in the opposition was playing you this footage and being like, look, nobody cares. I mean, I know everyone watching, probably almost everyone watching gets this. It's just that family member you have who insisted that, no, this is super serious and trust me, the government have told us, so it's true.
Man-beg pigs out there.
Please send them this video, for Christ's sake, and just be like, look, the internal text messages of the government are them telling each other, this is a waste of time, and we don't know what we're doing based on evidence because we don't have any evidence. And the evidence we do have points against what we're doing, including the biggest actual crime, which is killing everyone in the care homes. So this is Matt Hancock getting expert advice on care home testing, which was the biggest vector of actual deaths, needless, and Matt Hancock rejected the advice on the basis of, I'm Matt Hancock. I'm the health minister.
Slams fist on desk. I'm Matt Hancock, god damn it.
I don't have any knowledge of what I'm doing, but I am the government, so I'll do what I damn well please. There we have it. Great. I can't back down because I've backed myself into a corner where I have to just scream the science and then ban new thing today.
Well,
That's what they reduced their governing strategy to.
Think of the implications that this has for every single other issue that the supposed far right and evil far right Nazis bring up to do with anything to do with the government policies, because this just confirms what we all already know, that the government knows that the concerns that people bring up are legitimate. They know that there is plenty of evidence behind them, but they hate you. They hate you anyway and will dismiss you, and they're probably having these conversations. Immigration's not looking great, is it? No, it's not. Should we do anything about it? Open the borders. That's probably what's going on.
If we can get the internal text messages of everything, I mean, frankly, I wouldn't be opposed to a bill that's just like, yeah, all text messages from the government in 2 years have to be released to the public. I want to see what they were saying.
Mm.
We go to the next one. We have George Osborne told Hancock bluntly, no one thinks testing is going well, Matt, which is funny. But again, more collusion with the media directly through your old buddy who runs a national newspaper. Cool. We go to the next one as well. There's Hancock whining at the media. I want to hit my target. Asking for favours there. Great. We'll go to the next one. Boris Johnson's desire to lift lockdown was thwarted by public opinion, is the headline on the next one, which is funny because, well, where is public opinion created? Where was it created during the lockdowns? Oh, that's you guys. Again, this is a bit of salt as I read all of these, that for some reason the entire narrative in this newspaper's release of the deets is that Boris Johnson didn't do nothing. And I'm a bit like, yeah, he was still in charge, though, wasn't he? So the idea that he didn't have any real power, he was only the prime minister.
There is definitely
a weird
sense
narrative
that I'm getting from all of this that you're right. They're just trying to pin everything on Matt Hancock when there was a gigantic network of people
just clean up
coordinating
Boris's
this.
name. I was like, I don't know, man.
People aren't taking to Rishi as much as we want. Quick, get the Boris Johnson patrol back in action.
Maybe it's the case, and maybe he was just too weak to do anything. Who knows? But they know because they've got all the text messages, in which case let us know.
I mean, to be fair,
Give
even
us
if
some.
this is a we need to clear Boris's name campaign, it's just making him seem even weaker than we already knew he was.
Yeah, well, the next one is just them laughing about shoving people into Premier Inns on return flights, even though they knew it made no difference to the national scene of how many people would get COVID. So that's great. They also decided to have a conversation about looking up Nigel Farage because he dared to go out and criticise the government in a legal way. He went to a pub to talk about pubs and the fact they're being destroyed by the government and travelling to the United States legally. But that didn't stop the government from having an internal discussion about can we lock up pub hooligan Nigel Farage. This was on Hancock's team discussing it. They contacted the police. The police said no because he's not broken any law. So I mean, there's one advantage we have.
There's something at least.
Yeah. They also decided to hold a party the next day about Piers Morgan quitting as they talk about locking up Nigel Farage for criticising them. They're like, yeah, he broke COVID rules. Now let's have a party.
And if you needed any more evidence that every single one of the people in charge of our society right now is completely evil and hates you.
Yeah. Apparently discussions with Piers Morgan were disgustingly long. Like, the journalist in question said she controlled F'd and then searched Piers Morgan and gave up after a while because there were just too many messages about him.
Why do they care so much about Piers Morgan?
They're human beings. They will become obsessed with things like human beings in power do. You know how some people become obsessed with, I don't know, like someone who criticizes them forever.
I know, but I thought the only
Same thing.
I thought the only person who cared this much about Piers. Well, there's two people who
Well,
care
Piers
this much.
Morgan and-
Piers Morgan and Meghan Markle. They're the only two people.
You would have hoped. And we go to the next one. It's just also getting tests for mates. Jacob Rees-Mogg's kid in this case. When there's a national shortage, just corruption. Okay. Minor, but still there. The next one is get heavy with the police to enforce lockdown. Matt Hancock told ministers, telling them to go out and find the public, even though he knew there was no evidence for what they were doing. Just go out and do it. Why? Okay. Because I've backed myself into a corner again. There's also Matt Hancock's response to all of these information, and this is being drop-fed, so there's going to be more and more leaks coming out. So go and check that out, I guess, at the Telegraph. But I am annoyed that it's only available through their team. It brings me sus, but that's normal. Matt Hancock's response is that they're doctored, and they fit an anti-lockdown agenda. Well, the second part's true, because the evidence fits an anti-lockdown agenda.
Matt, we didn't need the messages to confirm all of the data in them. The only thing that this confirms is that you already knew all of the data didn't reflect anything that you were doing. Or
Yeah.
it didn't support it.
Let's check out the propagandist response, though, because that's far more revealing. So we have Kay Burley here, who I'm just going to call a state propagandist. I can't get over the way the media seems to work, and everyone's like, oh, it's all independent. And she's like, no, it's not. We have her response saying, what on earth was former Health Secretary Matt Hancock up to by handing over private messages to a COVID lockdown denier? Talking about the journalist who released the emails.
It's a good question. Why did he send them to her anyway?
Calling her a COVID lockdown denier.
Well, yeah, the only tactic...
What does that mean?
Well, it means this is a label that you know should give you a bad gut response in your feelies to let you know she's a bad person.
But, like, Holocaust...
Therefore, you're supposed to ignore everything except lockdown denier, and then it's supposed to make your gut go, oh no, bad person.
Look here, plebs, bad person, don't listen to the leaks.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Holocaust denier means that you deny the Holocaust happened, so a lockdown denier denies the lockdown was good? Does that mean Holocaust deniers just deny the Holocaust was good? I don't... It doesn't make any sense! It's clearly, as you point out, just I need a smear word.
Yeah.
She doesn't just write it, she says it in this clip as well.
And taken literally, it would mean you're either denying that they existed or denying, more reasonably, that the reasons that they were based on were bunk.
Yeah, it's obvious propagandist speak, is my point, about why she's using that terminology. And you can see it, but who is she? If people have forgotten, she was the one who broke lockdown and got arrested for it and charged. Because she multiple times on one night, where the curfew came into effect, went out partying, which wasn't allowed.
And let's be honest, once again, George Osborne, government minister, ends up editor for the Evening Standard. All of these people have connections with ministers and high-ups in the government. She probably knew that these conversations were going on. Yeah. That's why she did this, because she didn't care and she thought she wouldn't get caught. And if she thought she did, she thought, I won't get consequences anyway. And in the end, in the long run, she didn't anyway, because she's still going on Twitter, just pointing at it, going, bad person, bad, you should be bad.
The journalist who brings a public interest to the public is a bad person, but me, the state propagandist Kay Burley, is a good person. I mean, I'm sorry, but this does very much remind me of the authoritarian regimes around the world that everyone is like, yeah, look at that, that's terrible, we wouldn't have that here. We do. It's just we are lucky enough to have some opposition outlets. That's it. That's all we've got. We don't really have that much, frankly. If we go to the next one here, we can just quickly wrap up some of this. The BBC, being state propagandists as well, got the journalist on in question and then started berating her that, there's a state-sponsored inquiry to tell us what the state did wrong. Why don't you wait for that to finish up, instead of being a dirty individual and releasing the evidence? And she's like, well, the state-sponsored inquiry, number one, is run by the state. Number two, there's no deadline on that, so it could be a decade before that comes out. So yeah, there's a pretty good reason to just release it publicly.
And even... I mean, nobody from the public was ever going to get any whiff of any of the internal documents or messaging that was going on behind the scenes anyway. So this is the only way we were ever going to get our hands on this stuff.
Do I trust the state-sponsored inquiry to tell us the facts? No. Do I trust them to tell us it anytime soon? No. And in which case, what they're going to come out with in their idea was we'll do a state-sponsored inquiry that every party in Parliament supports. Weird that. Weird how they all support it. The same thing, all of a sudden. It's probably because they all want to wash their hands. And in 10 years, they'll come out and say the government did nothing wrong. And the rightist journalist was like, fuck that. I think the public should know the truth. There you are. Yeah, she's the one on the right.
Kind of fascist or something?
Yeah. We're going to disclose TV because there's some news in the States in which a bill has been introduced in the Senate that calls to declassify all US intelligence on the origins of COVID. Go further. Declassify every conversation that was had about COVID in the state, especially Fauci's text messages. I want to see what those are as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be the right thing to do for the world. And what does this really mean, this whole story? Well, it means that the opposition was right. Again, we'll go to the last link here, just to have a big old listicle of, there you are. We can't read all of these. But there is just the fact that, funnily, the government that took the position of our governing strategy is just to shout trust the science and ban something new wasn't really a governing strategy. There was no wisdom there. There was no common sense. Whereas the people who actually said, wisdom and common sense might be more useful than this, schizophrenic health minister who's cheating on his wife. Weirdly had a better outcome than the trust the science cultist, which, yeah, there we are. Everything you thought was the case is true and factually proven now. If you appreciated that segment from the podcast The Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Symposium series, this episode on patriotism. If you Want to find out what else is being put out? You can follow on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.